will take you way further than the law ever could. I'll prove it to you. Let's say your child is in a horrible accident. Let's say they bust their head wide open, and on the way to the emergency room, every sign you see says, speed limit. How much attention do you pay to the numbers beneath the speed limit in that moment? Those numbers mean nothing to you. Why? Because somebody that you love is in trouble. And in that moment, any parent will break the law for the sake of love. So what God did when he sent his son, and this is why we get excited in church, and this is why tears fill our eyes when we think about Jesus, and this is why the gospel is still good news in the world today, because God broke the law for love. I said to every sinner, God broke the law for love.
What Stephen is doing here is he's taking a real-life example of something that we would all do, and then he is applying that to our perfect and just creator. Just because we're in a situation where we would all break the law doesn't mean that that's a right thing to do, doesn't mean that that's okay to do, even if we would all do it.
I'm really interested in the statement here, God broke the law for love. What's being made here is a claim about God's character, that he's the kind of God who breaks the law. Now we know that a person who breaks God's law is a sinner. That's what sin is. It's failure to keep God's law. What Furtick is accusing God of in this sermon is breaking his own law. He's recognizing a real problem. God has this situation where he wants two things. He wants, number one, to remain just and to fulfill his law, and he wants, number two, to justify us so that he might reconcile us to God. There are a few things that God could do with that situation. Number one, he could actually break his own law. Because we fail to meet his standard, God's law is the soul who sins must die. Or, option two, he can find a way to reconcile us to himself without breaking his law and without being an unjust God. Well, that's what we find in Romans chapter 3. And he says, to demonstrate at the present time his righteousness, that he might be just and the justifier of the one who has faith in Jesus. What Furtick is talking about right here is a God who is a justifier, but is no longer just.
Jesus, in Matthew chapter 5, he says, do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. For truly I say to you, until heaven and earth pass away, not an iota, not a dot, will pass from the law until it all is accomplished. Therefore, whoever laxes one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever does them and teaches them will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. This whole idea of the law doesn't matter to God, the law is very important to God. We see this clearly in this passage in Matthew chapter 5. If you want to see how important the law was to God, you can just look at how intensely Jesus suffered on the cross for us breaking the law. In John 14, Jesus said, if you love me, you'll keep my commandments. This whole idea that Stephen Furtick is bringing up about how the law is something that is contrary to love. I think Jesus very clearly teaches here that the law and love are one and the same.
I'm also very interested in this perspective. He says, this is why tears fill our eyes when we talk about Jesus. This is why the gospel is emotional and means something to us, is because God was willing to break his own law for love. I would argue the contrary, that the reason that tears fill our eyes when we talk about Jesus is because God fulfilled the law on Jesus. What Jesus was experiencing on that cross was the just fulfillment of the law. Isaiah 53 says, all we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned everyone to his own way. And the Lord has, what? Forsaken his law so he can have communion with us? No. And the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. The reason tears fill our eyes when we talk about Jesus is because God fulfilled his law on the cross.